welcome everybody to Brown and Browner on this wonderful Friday.
Welcome.
As we well know, there's been a lot of things going on, including the Olympics, all sorts of fun political stuff, I'm sure, that's kind of tied in some degree, and some comedy of sorts as well.
Some interesting things to talk about this morning.
Yes, absolutely. I'll kick it off with the Olympic part. Obviously, we've got Simone Biles that, finished her status as the GOAT, no question. And it still impresses me to this day that she's like all of 4'8" maybe ish, and just has amazing physical skill.
I saw a picture of her and Shaq.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Apparently her vertical clearance in some of the events she does is greater than her jumping over Shaq.
That's right. They were saying she's getting up to 11.9 feet in the air, and she has to land that. Remember, she's only 4'8". So that is pretty amazing. I mean, and for those who are just something I have to say for her husband, I hope her husband's gotten educated now on who she is, because she is the GOAT. All right. And you are just some guy on a Bears roster. I just have to say that.
Hey, he got time off to go watch yesterday. You got to give him some credit. The Bears were on the field. He didn't have to be. Got to give him some credit there to say the least. But no, that was impressive in its own right. And I was also glad to see Suni Lee finish in the medals as well, obviously, because
that was great. He was able to get the gold when Simone was out in 2020, and now she came back, and even with Simone in there, she got the bronze. I think that was the first time we finished on the platform on two.
It's been a while since we've had two on the platform at the same time. But I kind of have some concerns about how that gets portrayed. It's like, oh, well, she won the gold because Simone wasn't there, versus she was that damn good to win the gold. Because it's not like she didn't also beat the rest of the world, Like, I understand Simone wasn't there, but that doesn't mean Simone was also guaranteed the gold either,
True. And you shouldn't take away from her accomplishment.
Absolutely.
And we don't mean any disrespect.
Yeah.
Definitely respect the fact that you performed and earned your gold medal. All I was saying is, here's the lady who won in 2016. She won in 2024. She wasn't there in 2020. You got to feel like, it's like when Brady wasn't in the Super Bowl, you felt a little bit better. Like, you got a better chance of winning. So I'm not trying to take away from Suni, but I do want to.
No, I don't disagree with that sentiment at all. It's just like, I don't think every time I've seen an interview with Simone and Suni Lee and all that, and I'm just sitting there like, everyone's got the same statements like, oh, Suni, you won the gold when Simone wasn't there in 20. I'm like, stop saying that. She won the gold.
You won the gold in 2020. Don't put any of that other stuff in there.
You won the gold in any event. You're the dog.
Hey, I got a funny story real quick. So yesterday, a guy was commenting on Simone Biles, and I'd sent a picture. I don't know who gave me the picture, but I sent that to my group chat of old friends. And he came back with, I just got out of a funeral, and after the funeral, we went and watched Simone Biles, and she is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling my wife, this is one of my, he's a cool guy, but he's just a little off. It's like, you didn't have to tell us that the funeral was.
Yeah, no, you didn't know the funeral part.
Yeah, you didn't have to go that part. And that's the part, that's what you're saying about how they're starting this conversation. You didn't have to say Simone wasn't there, you won without Simone there. Start with you were the gold medal winner in 2020. How do you feel?
Exactly.
And I think that's what people sometimes forget, is more is not always good.
No, absolutely. No, keep it simple, keep it to the point. Obviously people realize the context of what it was, but at the same time, it's like you got two premier athletes at the top of their game winning a damn gold medal, and it's just impressive to watch.
That's right. Celebrate that. Don't celebrate the circumstances.
Yep, exactly. But no, it'll be kind of cool to see. I mean, I don't think Suni Lee's probably going to make it to LA in 2028 because it sounds like she has some other health conditions and stuff. Can you imagine Simone Biles at the age of 31? Could she still be flying? I think she could.
Why not?
She could.
And she is that good. I mean, remember, greatness is defined when people actually identify things that you do that no one else has done or can do. Exactly. She has moves named after her.
Yes. Yep.
She was sporting this little gold.
Yeah, I saw that little goat chain.
You know what? In some cases, people might say something, and of course, because people are people, right? Oh, well, why is she flashing that and blah, blah, blah. She earned that.
Earned that.
There is no, I'm not sure. This isn't a LeBron versus Michael Jordan conversation. This is, oh yeah, she's the best that we've ever seen.
I mean, I'll take it back full circle. Yeah, people were so enamored with trying to be fair and all that crap and all the participation trophy shit. I'm like, look, this chick, she won the damn thing. She deserves to show it off. I don't care how she does it. She gets to show it off. And she's done it multiple times. Not once, multiple times. I understand flash in the pan shit and then somebody trying to be the GOAT. No, that doesn't work. She's done it multiple times for a decade, if not longer.
Well, and something that they keep saying on the Olympics that I think should be, mentioned and is mentioned correctly. She did not compete in 2020, came back in 2024. There are no Olympians doing that where they get a gold in 1 year and then 8 years later they're getting the gold again. I'll look in the records, but I'm pretty sure we don't need Himbo to be able to answer that question.
Exactly. No, I think there's a lot of cool, I would say, redemption stories that are there in the course of history in the Olympics, but this has got to be right up there among some of the best, to say the least. Mm-hmm. I think the other one probably people are talking about it less right now that I think they probably will maybe next week is Sha'Carri Richardson. Now, remember, she didn't get to
talk about her yet, right?
No, I mean, and she will be, I mean, the fact of the matter, she's won a lot of, world titles and stuff over the last 2 years and proven herself that she is the fastest woman on earth at this point.
Yeah.
And the only reason
is out too, if I read correctly.
Yeah. And the only reason that she didn't get to go 21 was because the whole weed smoking thing or whatever.
Right. Which that's some bull crap. That is not an answer. I'm sorry. You're not going to run faster because you smoke weed.
No, in fact, exactly. And I get that to some degree, some people see her image also kind of being a little bit more brash and stuff like that. And some people contend that. But you know what? If you look back at the course of history, people that run fast have a little attitude.
It's good.
Not everybody can be what I call in my youth. I used to love watching Jackie Joyner Kersee because that girl could run.
She was great. And she was the one that didn't. She wasn't flashy. She didn't
talk. Well, her and FloJo both were very, very similar.
Well, FloJo, as soon as you show her fingernails, come on now. She looked like Medusa. She put her hands close up to her head. It was Medusa-like because it was so damn long and wavy and stuff. So I don't know about her. But
I was wondering about the aerodynamics of that. Like, how did that work?
I don't know, but nobody could beat her.
She overcame that.
But I think, something you said, and over time, like if you look back in the history of the world, and I'm sorry, I feel like there's an undertone of racism in this. And the reason I'll say that is this. When the heavyweight championship was the thing, back in the early 1900s, 1960s, 70s, etc.
Yeah.
Whenever there was a black champion and they did not, like Jack Johnson, I'm pretty sure was one of them, he had to go to France because he fell in love with a white lady and they were like, wait a minute, you're supposed to be the heavyweight champion and you're supposed to be kowtowing to us and be thankful that we allow you to be champion as opposed to you just sort of flaunting that and doing what you want to do because you are champion. Yep. So he got more love overseas than here. Yep. Jimi Hendrix got more love overseas than here. Muhammad Ali changed his name for religious reasons, and those weren't bad religious reasons. He wasn't a terrorist. He changed his name because he believed in something better from a
conviction.
Yep. Yeah, and his own convictions. And they damned him for that and challenged him and called him his old slave name, because that was a slave name.
Yep.
And until later on, and they saw what kind of man he was, they weren't willing to give that up. He was too brash. He was too, you should be thankful for being the heavyweight champion instead of calling out when you're going to knock people out and telling people that the world is bad and we need to get better. There's a lot of that going on here too. They also did it, and I feel it in this case, but Reese,
Angel
Reese.
Yep.
She's getting the same flack. Now, you remember what happened? What happened was Caitlin Clark would do this when she was scoring and doing winning. And then when they lost to LSU, again, she didn't have to be all up in her face because I'm telling you, if I'd have been Caitlin, I'd have smacked her. But and she did all of this and did this. But because she did it, she was vilified, right?
Oh, yeah, she's still being vilified. She's still being vilified.
Would that be the same? Is it the same if one type of person does it versus another type of person does it? Is it consistent when we say, oh, well, that person isn't, showing the kind of class we expect from people in that, in that position? or are we just sort of selective in how we do it?
Yeah, no, and I think it came out. I can't remember which event it was. It was fencing, and apparently there was some trash talk taking place, and I can't remember if the guy that won it was from Korea, and the guy that took the silver was from Italy. And the Korean guy beat the Italian guy in the final to get the gold over the silver. And immediately the guy gets on, I believe, Twitter and puts up a pineapple pizza. Insulting the Italian. Because it's a criminal. People apparently think it's a crime to put pineapple on pizza. So
okay, I'm not wrong there. That's that California pizza. I'm not a fan. A lot of people like it. Okay.
I like the taste of it, but I'm not saying it's supposed to be offensive to those who pioneer pizza or whatever. At the end of the day, I get it.
Serious? Come on, man.
But at the same time, apparently people took enough racial connotation to it that they called out the poor Korean guy for being a racist.
What?
Yeah. They took it as some sort of racial connotation against the Italians that they were insulting him by putting the pineapple pizza on a picture. I mean, that's how overly sensitive we have become.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the whole point of this, to people being able to showcase their winning or, whatever it is. I'm sorry, but part of competition and part of sports is the trash talk. And it kind of makes it a little bit of the piece of it because, yeah, you have the physical piece of it, but a lot of sports are mental. Tennis is mental. Things are mental. And you've got to overcome that. You can't soften things up just because people say in society you shouldn't be doing this, that, or the other. I'm sorry. But over the course of history, you can't imagine how much trash talk there was in boxing or in anything.
Everything. And that makes it
every day.
That's part of being competitive. Some people don't do it, and that's fine if you don't do it. But what are the great stories you hear about Larry Bird? Don't put that white guy on me. You better put a brother on me. That's classic. That's what you talk about when you look at something afterwards.
Yes,
and when you're in the moment, that's supposed to either fuel your fire or distract you and let them have an advantage over you. And people do that deliberate. Dennis Rodman was one of the best at that. He wasn't necessarily the most talented player in the world, but he used all of his tools to become one of the greatest power forwards or whatever position you want to put him in the league. So,
when you hear about, some of these NBA players after they've retired and stuff, you hear about how much of a trash talker they were on the court, and it's impressive.
Exactly.
Apparently, Tim Duncan, quiet as he was, apparently was a trash talker.
What was that?
Duncan apparently trash talk a lot. Is what I heard.
Tim Duncan said a few things, and no one would ever know that.
Would ever respect that.
But again, it's like grow a backbone, people. I know that there are some things that we do wrong or have done wrong historically that we need to change. But we can't go 180 on everything. 180 on everything, we're going to be in trouble.
There's a line of, being like a racist or something when you're making those comments. Yeah, obviously you don't cross those paths. But you're allowed to, talk trash in the cleanest way possible. And that's part of the game at the end of the day. I'm sorry. Like soccer players do it routinely at the international level.
Now, some of that actually is racist.
Some of that is racist.
That is racist. Yeah, I did call that out. Some of that is racist.
Absolutely.
Well, and we're talking about pineapple pizza being racist, and the person running for president just straight out comes out. And that ain't racist.
Not to bring it full circle, but that just took it. Well, so I got two thoughts on it. One, obviously, that was the most moronic thing I've ever heard in my life. And your audience was lost on that one. You're talking to black journalists.
He forgot. And the funny thing was, I was talking to my wife, and she was upset, and she was talking to our friend who's Asian. One of her best friends. And we were talking about, she was more talking to her friend, but I jumped in. Oh, well, they have a black caucus and they brought Trump in and one person resigned over it. And why did they bring him in? And initially I was thinking the same thing, but then I thought this is the perfect scenario to put him in because he can't help but put his foot in his mouth.
He got rope-a-doped. And I think I talked about this 2 weeks ago on our discussion here. The dumbest thing that could have possibly happened is him to get suckered into this conversation, this very conversation. Not just about race, but just stupid comments, idiots, non-filtered thought. Like his team had to have thought about this, you would think. I'm not trying to defend somebody, But I'm sorry, when you're running for president, like this is the one way to fuck things up when you're sitting almost neck and neck, if not ahead in the polls somehow, you know.
Well, and he's coming to Illinois, right? So he's
Yeah.
coming here. You're not going to win this state,
No.
but you're trying to make a statement to black people, I guess. What made you all the movies they have? I'm sorry, he should have had like 5 things in his ear going, stop, don't say that, don't move, don't say anything, use the, I plead the fifth.
Freeze.
Yeah, be funny, do the Dave Chappelle and go, I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth. Do that. Don't say anything else though, Donald.
No,
But they apparently didn't have anything in his ear, and he went off script, and boy did he fuck up.
he has fallen hook, line, and sinker for exactly what I think the Democrats wanted at this point, was to him to show his quote unquote true colors, play unfiltered, and come off as a complete moron. Now, that said,
yeah, because I got something to add to that one, but go ahead. I'll let you go ahead.
I'm going to put the reverse spin on this, and some people may not like it, and some people may. To some degree, he and his team, along with I think JD Vance said some comments, I think on the border similarly along similar lines, and some other stuff, and some other people too, like pundits. Kamala Harris, going back to even when she was in California, and she was running for things there, and then ultimately through her vice presidential run and now into her presidential run, she has played the selective race card, as I like to call it,
as we all do, both
as
negative.
I think a lot of people do at different times.
Yeah.
So to some degree, it's both defended at the same time as an Indian. I do find it somewhat hilarious because there have been times, and she has been quoted this, I think, even publicly on Twitter and other things, of making some comments about her heritage, particularly Indian heritage,
Right.
which makes me even question like any validity to her upbringing as an Indian versus say any other race or anything. Now she grew up in a truly white, truly mixed household, African American, Jamaican, actually more specifically,
Right.
Jamaican and Indian, and she had both influences in her. Her name says it all, everything, like fully invested, dressed, the whole 9 yards. I believe she made some comments. It was back when her California run, that I think I ended up dating this too, where she was talking about like the types of food she used to eat, coming up, and the types of dress she used to wear, stuff like that. And all the connotation there was toward a North Indian upbringing.
I remember that.
And she's not North Indian. She's South Indian, which is a completely different dynamic, completely different dinner upbringing, completely different food culture vibe. Coming from an Indian.
There's no crossover there, because you would think that somebody would remember correctly what they actually wore and the things that they went,
well, that's the thing. I mean, she cited like specific food and dress that you would typically wear in a North Indian household. Particularly, she said Punjab rice and things like that. I'm like, you're from the South. Punjab is all the way by Mount Everest.
But could it be though? Like,
I'm not saying she couldn't have had it or whatever. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that in the Indian community, and I'm not speaking obviously for every single Indian out there, but I can tell you at least with my own family and the people that I've talked to,
sure,
they don't buy her credibility as someone quote unquote Indian enough to be considered Indian in 100% realm. At the same time, they understand she's mixed race, and obviously, that's I think more power to her for that. But at the same time, when you're talking about what I would consider to be more conservative voters, which is usually, at least in my own race, that's usually the case. Conservative, not necessarily Republican, but conservative meaning conservative in thought, both Democrat and Republican, not as outgoing or liberal or forthright in their thoughts. They try to kind of quote unquote stay to their roots. And I'm going to make a political assumption here that probably I could be wrong on just as much, but I feel like she's almost potentially losing out on a demographic of voters that I think she could probably bank on, meaning female Indian voters, by sometimes alienating her thoughts and minds behind it and kind of being selective about it versus being more forthright. Not saying that she should always talk about being Indian or whatever, but at the same time, like, she makes comments here and there that make you kind of question like the whole cultural, being there. Now, that said, I understand that culture, religion, politics, everything that you're upbringing on makes you who you are. Don't get me wrong. We're voting for the person that's going to be taking place over the next 4 years. And obviously that's shaped on the past. But at the same time, like, I don't think a person should be held back because of any way that they portray themselves or not portray themselves in the past either.
Well, that would be my comment was, does it matter?
Right.
What nationality, what culture,
exactly. And that's the whole point.
It should be
this is America. We're the melting pot, not one.
Right.
Yes.
Right. That's why we have the idea of you could be biracial and you could be Tiger Woods. They're saying, well, he wasn't black and then now he's black and he was Asian before and now he's Asian. He's a person first. It shouldn't be I think of him better because he is this or that. It should be the
perfect time to resurrect the Chappelle draft. Like, I mean,
Matter of fact, we should play that one day. That was just so funny.
I mean, they should do it just for golf and be like, "Hey, Scotty Scheffler, you're black today."
Oh man, and I'm sorry, this is so stereotypical, but I would love to see him drive up in one of those golf carts that's like blinged out with like got the two rims on it, and then he gets out, he's got like 5 gold chains on, got his head to the side, and he does a little pimp walk where he dips a little bit. Oh, I'm Scotty fan for the rest of my life if he did that.
I would pay to see that. I would pay, and I would not see that. And I would not see it as offensive. I would see it as totally awesome.
and this is the funny part. We're thinking of this in a comedic way. I can guarantee you, if he actually did that, he would be shot down so badly. Even though well, and the funny thing is, most of the people who were black would find it funny, but there would be 5 black people who go, "Oh my God, it's offensive and cultural appropriation and blah 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 blah." And before you know it, it becomes something bad. And that's where the world is. What you were talking about, being oversensitized. It's like people look for something bad so they can point it out and then make it something, as opposed to look at all the good that's in it and the intent behind it. Like if I go out there and I do something like that, shouldn't you first think of the intent before you think of, oh, well, he's just trying to be this or that? Because I wouldn't picture Scotty Scheffler or any other white person who would do that as being, oh, I'm slapping all the black people in the face. They're actually rolling with it and making it fun.
Exactly. And I mean, here's my fun commentary to the whole Trump thing. Yeah, he said something obviously very stupid and just off the wall, not just for the wrong audience, just in general, it's like
that's just Trump. He wakes up like that.
And that's just what it is. Now, at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, the very first thing out of that journalist group would have been like, so why does it matter? Not the whole black thing. I'm saying like she comes off as Indian, I believe was the first part of the
statement.
You need
to check her credentials. You need to look into that.
Not to point it back in the mirror and just kind of hold up a mirror and be like, your vice presidential candidate's wife is Indian.
Whoops. What?
And I'm sorry, but I hardly knew anything about JD Vance up until when he started running.
Yeah, I don't.
I had no idea an Indian wife. I had no idea. I would have figured him to be a back of the woods white dude, likes to hunt, whatever. I'm sorry for me being racist, but that was my initial thought. Everything I found out about him, completely wrong.
You know what's really sad? Yeah, I think what you said brought up a good point. And that's what the journalist said when he said black jobs. And it's like, oops, wait a minute. I said something stupid. Let me retract. I meant all jobs.
All jobs.
All jobs are black jobs. Shut the hell up, you lying. Whatever.
Yeah, lying piece of shit. Yeah, exactly.
But I feel like what you said is very relevant. That's when you have to attack the idea of racism. That was the perfect opportunity. Why does this matter?
Yes.
You're just trying to begin another distraction. Why don't we talk about what you plan on doing for the world? What is your agenda?
Exactly.
What do you really think?
Neither side has said it, and that's what really pisses me off right now. I mean,
he didn't have to do it the first time around. He never had an agenda except the wall, and he never delivered on anything. But nobody challenges that. But here's the thing that I wanted to state: what I got out of that is, I wish that part what you said would have come up, because I think that would have been able to put a light on this, like a magnifying glass on how.
Oh yeah, it would have been the perfect turning point. Yeah, absolutely.
But I feel like the people who are voting for Trump at this point don't even care. None of that meant anything to them.
Well, I've got to go back and check my source on this. I think I just kind of flashed through something last night. Supposedly Trump had another rally or something going on last night, and people walked out early. Again, I don't know what the truth to it was. I'm just pointing out what the article said, but it said that people walked out early because at this point, I don't know if that means like they're just either tired of hearing the rhetoric or haven't heard anything new for them to stick around long enough to want to listen anymore. Meaning that they've already made up their mind, and maybe they have the loyalists, like you just said. Like there's a group of people that will always side at one side, but are there also people in the middle now that are just like, hey, we've given up on both sides or even one side or the other, right? Like everybody's made up their mind at this point. There's nothing to be won between now and November, in other words.
I sort of feel like that.
Yeah,
I feel like barring something just that's totally newsworthy that sticks out, this is just going to ride the course all the way to November. And the people who are looking at where they are today, there's some undecideds.
Yeah.
And my thing is,
very few.
Yeah, I don't think that there are a lot of them, but if there are enough of them, that could sway the whole election.
Absolutely.
Especially if they decide not to vote.
Yeah, and that's the big piece of it. Absolutely. Now, you bring up a perfect segue. If you've noticed in the news over the last week, I believe, solid, what's with all of these international captures, trades, things of that nature? So if you notice, I think it kicked off with the Middle East at first, where apparently now you got obviously Israel going after like of Hezbollah and all the and basically bombing the hell out of them in different places, including going to Iran, which was pretty crazy. I think that one's going to be trouble for everyone all around the world. So that's one piece of it. Then, of course, we work out some sort of deal with the guys behind 9/11 down at Gitmo, where we take them off. Apparently, they don't have to go after the death penalty now, and they're probably just going to go to jail or something like that. And then, of course, you come up with this other thing where we apparently two drug lords from Mexico. Chapo's
the Chapo and Chapo Jr.
Well, it's El Mayo, Chapo Jr. and El Mayo, and then that whole syndicate from Sinaloa. And then I believe it was yesterday we had the trade thing going on
with Russia,
which I'm just sitting there like,
where did that come from? I did not hear anything about that.
So I don't want to create a conspiracy theory here, but how is it all of this shit happens all of a sudden in 1 week? And you're just going.
Trump's going to use this.
Oh no, it's going to be used for sure. But okay, no, I'm going to take this even more broad and full circle because I brought this up with somebody else at work yesterday. The Olympics are supposed to be a time of peace from war, because that was the premise from the Greeks. If you look at the historical context of the Olympics, this is supposed to be a time of peace where people get together, have these athletic events and competitions. And it's a
political overtone. But there's a political overtone to the Olympics, and
there's always been a political overtone since the for decades, obviously. And we've never had war stop. So I find it embarrassing when we're still having stuff like this happen. The war in Israel and Palestine and all that stuff going on, Ukraine. I mean, you can name off everything around the world. It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
But then also behind the scenes, you've got things like this going on that people haven't even had on the radar, frankly.
Right.
When's the last time we talked about 9/11? Probably it's been a minute, right? To say the least. When's the last time we talked about political swaps of prisoners with Russia? And I have my own
Brittany Griner outside of Brittany Griner, because that was a conversation at that time. You hadn't heard anything else about that.
During the Griner swap, you remember they were talking about, I forget the guy's name that I finally got swapped this time around, but that guy had been in prison for longer than Brittany Griner in Russia for all the wrong things, and now they're just now getting him out. Now, here's my beef to this, and it's nothing against the people that got swapped. Obviously, they deserve to be free and everything else, and they need to be brought home. We gave up some pretty severe stuff to do that, if you think about it. I believe that guy was like a mass murderer or something.
I was going to say, usually what we end up giving is a lot worse, right? Because the leverage is we got somebody you want, so give us some of the horrible people that we want to get freed and probably have been trying to get free for a long time.
Well, here's the twist to this, too. It wasn't us doing like a 1-for-1 with us and Russia. We had to get other people involved from NATO to do it, because apparently the mass murderer guy was in Germany or something being held.
You know what? This sounds like a straight up Dave Chappelle draft swap skit number 2.
Straight up. Straight up. No, like I said, nothing against people getting freed. It absolutely needs to happen. But at the same time, I'm like, how much do you give up? And I think it's already been played out politically last night. I think I forgot what I was watching, but the Republicans already came out and said, we're the worst negotiators in the world. We give up more than we ever get.
It's going to be used.
Yeah.
It's going to be used, even though there's some good and some bad to this. Why has this always become a political? We're going to, let's polarize the nation again.
No,
I'm happy that people are coming home. I'm not happy that we're giving up who we're giving up.
No.
but we need to get people home. If
Yep.
you're ever in the military that's leave no one behind, well, these people have been left behind.
People are going to hate me for saying this, but and I don't know the circumstances behind Paul. I forgot the other guy's name that was there for a long time that got swapped out finally yesterday, and then a few of the other political prisoners that were frankly there for the wrong reasons because they got stuck for the wrong reasons.
Mhm.
But I'm sorry, but Brittany Griner actually committed a crime on Russian soil, and that's what pisses me off.
She did. I mean, what the crime was so minor.
It was so minor,
in my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
but
no,
it was
and
a crime.
that I totally agree with. Like, it's
Yeah.
minor in the eyes of everything else that happens in the world. And then
Right.
I'll get to another comment on that too. But it was minor in the eyes of the world in general. But she committed an actual crime on another person's soil. I'm sorry, but anytime you do that when you're traveling,
You're subject. Hey,
you're
how about
subject to
the
their
kid who
rules.
got-
You're
how about the kid who
offering
got-
yourself those rules.
how about the kid who got caned in Singapore?
Singapore. No, so I was just talking to one of our coworkers went to Singapore last year, and he's like, it's illegal to chew gum in the streets of
That's
Singapore.
right. And don't litter. Don't spit that gum out on the street. Somebody might jump out of the car and whoop your ass right there.
Exactly. And I'm like, you're supposed to respect other people's cultures and rules when you're traveling in other places, just like you do when you go to someone's house. You follow their rules.
Well, it's funny you say that because I know we get off topic, and that's what I love about what we do. But why shouldn't this be common? Why should it be Singapore has this rule about being clean? Oh, well, you know what? When I'm in America, I'll take the gum, spit it on the ground, I'll throw trash everywhere because there is no law that enforces that. I think we should have that kind of law. I think it should be inherent in everybody. The expectation is that, just like you just said, I wouldn't go to somebody else's house and dirty up their house.
Exactly.
You don't do that. Well, why are you doing it
Respecting-
on the street? Why are you doing it across the world? It should be inherent in how you act. And I taught my kids this: don't ever litter. Not all the time, but if I do smoke a cigarette, I put it out and I put the butt back in my cigarette container until I get to a garbage can or finish smoking the pack.
Yep.
That's what you should be doing.
Yep.
It shouldn't be that somebody watches you and you have to do it. It should be that you just do it because that's the right thing to do. But people don't do that anymore. So
Well, it's like you said, some people knock the fact that some of these countries have to have these rules, but I'm sorry, but at some point, human civilization decided to not follow human respect, and they had to do it. Now, should we be doing it here? Yeah, I agree with you.
yeah. I love it, man. The next person I see that throws their bottle out of their car,
Oh, yeah.
the police should stop them right away, take them out, put their body cam on, make them pick it up, and then cane them twice.
Yeah,
Don't do it again.
exactly.
Have a nice day.
I'm sorry, but if punishment has to be harsh in order to make, or a fear factor has to be enlisted in order to make it work, then you have to do it. It's just how it works.
Hey, I feel this is like a microcosm of a bigger issue that we have in the world, in our generations, our youth. We used to, spare the rod, spoil the child kind of approach.
Yeah.
I feel like nowadays these kids have this power and we're losing the respect of how we do things in general, like how we should be as people.
I'm going to put up a picture real quick and hopefully it shows up. This is going to be indicative of exactly what you just said.
Oh yeah, love it. That's so this, right? Boomers versus
This is
millennials.
the Turkish shooter that has no protection, no nothing, and just out there just shooting like he's freaking James Bond.
Yep.
Here's the dude that's overly masked, overly covered, has every sensor chip in the world stuck to his fucking face.
Right. but that's where we are, and I feel like we have changed how we see our people grow up and see themselves. We don't have that toughness. We don't have, like you showed that picture. I thought of Dirty Harry on the right. I didn't even know what I thought of on the left. It looked like some anime cartoon. That's what I thought of on the left. And again, not trying to knock, because I love my young people. You guys are the world tomorrow.
Yeah.
And when I grew up, we were the same thing that you were back then. So you're no different than what we are. But what I feel like we don't have is, just like you said, we're overprotective. I used to ride a skateboard and I didn't have a helmet and all those things. Now, don't get me wrong. Maybe there were a few people who died with that, and I'm not trying to be insensitive to it, but it doesn't mean that we have to have all of these things on ourselves to feel safe. And even more important, my point was, kids used to fear their parents, not in a fear like abuse way, but fear as, I'm not going to let you down or disappoint you because I know you're going to whoop my ass if I do. And they don't have that anymore. Yeah, and the fear respecting, they don't have that anymore. And we don't have that as a world anymore. People walk around, they don't respect shit. I think we should go back to that. We need to stop this idea of these children having a bigger voice, they're immature. As you're growing up, you're immature. You develop maturity at some point, but you need experience for that. Until then, you shouldn't have a voice equal to the parent. There should be no way that happens. And
There's
the
a
kids
phrase.
nowadays have that. And I feel like we don't have that fear. I'm 57. I still, and I've done it in front of my mom. I swore in front of my mom. And immediately I said, I'm sorry, because I respect the hell out of her. And I truly am sorry, because I don't ever want to disrespect her. I don't see that in today's world.
No. There's a phrase in sports when people say that they're soft, right? I'm sorry, but this current generation is soft. I mean, I'll joke. Did you have a car seat when you were a kid?
Hell no. My car
No.
arm. If something was going to happen, the car seat was, I got smacked like the bag that comes out. She would just.
At best, I had a booster seat like they used to have at Pizza Hut when you dined in, and you strapped that thing in.
That was it, right? Just a little thing. That's it. And honestly, again, I'm sure there's a reason why things changed. There were people that got,
totally agree.
It's just like anything else, though, right? Like if you have an issue, you try to solve for the greatest piece of whatever, greatest group.
Yeah.
You can't please everybody. So for the two people who might have had a bad incident, we made these widespread changes, and I don't think it was necessary.
Yep.
Again, my opinion could be totally wrong.
Yeah, same. My opinion, but again, and people can believe what they want, but at the end of the day, I think there is a generational divide, and that is one of them at the end of the day. It's the fact that I think generations like ours, even maybe just a little bit after, let's say anybody before 1990, let's put it that way. Anybody born before 1990 grew up with a little more of an edge, I think, in terms of having to think outside the box and be a little tougher, because things weren't as they were.
Yep, I agree.
And like you just said, it comes with evolution and learning that, you know, things have gotten better in many things. Safety, obviously, you know, as we were mentioning, but and it's obviously warranted. But there's other things where you can't please every freaking person, and you shouldn't please every person. You do things for the greater good in the majority, and you live with it, and you move forward. And I'm sorry, but that's how also humans adapt and get better. Because there have to be gaps in everything. You can't just cover everything 100%. It's impossible to do so.
Impossible.
That 10% that gets left behind, they make things a little bit better the next time around.
If we operate in fear of these things, then what we do is this whole 180 concept. It's just like parenting. Oh my God, I don't want to be abusive to my kid. And you're right. You want to like beat them into submission. That shouldn't be how you parent. But there should be this idea and threat that if I mess up, there are consequences. Now, today's world, it's, oh my God, what does little Johnny think? Yeah. Oh my God, is Johnny's feelings hurt? Oh my God, let's give Johnny an award because we don't want him to feel different than the other kids on the team who actually were out there playing while Johnny was picking his nose on the sideline.
That one frustrates me the most as a coach.
Me too. And I had the same thing. And I loved all my kids, but you had to make up things to try to make them feel good about maybe subpar performance. And that's where we are today. We are ready to always be, you know, oh my God, and feeling. Sometimes it can't always be about feelings, and we don't all see things the same way. So,
I've got a my kids go to a swim instructor here, and she's kind of a disciple of Bob Bowman, who happens to be Michael Phelps and also the
coach.
This is Maryland. We're Ledecky and Phelps country around here. So there's a whole network of folks. But
hey, we forgot to mention that before you continue. One thing we talked about on the Olympics, and I wanted to give a shout out. Ledecky, you are the most decorated woman and American woman in Olympics history, and we don't want to shortchange you on that. So great accomplishment. I'm happy for you. I feel like you'd have gotten gold if the other people on the team would be a little bit better.
Yeah, exactly.
Relays you've been getting silver on, you would be winning those if you had one more you on that team.
She might have as many golds as Phelps if she had the firepower behind her.
You know, but I know we've already talked about the Olympics and moved on, but I wanted to make sure we gave that shout out because 100%. We didn't mention her. So
100%. There are things I was watching her in the 1500 the other day, and I'm like, I would drown. Like the fact that she has that much endurance to go a mile in the pool.
30 laps.
I know,
30. We did 30 laps. Come on, man.
And I'm talking like flawless execution. Like she's a fish in water. Like it's amazing to watch.
And I'm black. I know after 2 laps they would have had to get somebody. Yeah, because I'd have been at the bottom of the pool.
Believe me, I am not long distance either.
I think I'm going to throw that out. I like that joke. All right.
Everything melanin plays a role in not being able to do long distance, except for Kenyans and Ethiopians, only because they have mountains to play with.
Please, I'm just throwing jokes out there. Don't get mad at me. But one of the things I used to always say is, no wonder they're the best long distance runners, because that's how far they had to go to get to the store. So shit, they were practicing their whole life. It was like, oh yeah, okay, go out to the store. All right, let's go hit that. And we need this. I'll be back in about 4 to 6 hours.
Yeah, sounds about
it. When you ran to the store, carried all that shit on your back, on your head, and then came home.
I'll say it even in a worse way, unfortunately. I'll talk to some cousins that I have that live in Africa and other parts, and their running joke is, well, some of those folks have to go that far to get clean water.
That's not a joke, though, right? That's for real.
It's not. It's for real.
Yep. And the same thing what I said about how far you had to go to the store. And again, we're doing these as jokes. These are not meant to be offensive in any way to anybody. So
we're trying to highlight the things in the world that are wrong at the end of the day, but at the same time, people find them comical, but you have to understand you have to do something to fix it at the end of the day.
That's exactly right. And I cut you off with the Ledecky thing and we went off. You were
like I said, Ledecky, total respect, no questions asked. But going back to the whole coaching bit, so there's a disciple here at Bob Bowman's school, essentially. So she teaches my kids swimming along with several thousand others. She believes in just dropping the kid in the pool, all the way from 3 months all the way to 18 years. You as a parent are supposed to go sit on a wall on the opposite side. Do not coddle your kid. Do not touch your kid during the 30 minutes that you've given them to me. I will drop them. They will cry the entire lesson. Within 3 lessons, they will be swimming. I have seen an 8-month-old go across a pool.
But what you just said, I love what you just said, and that is the problem. And I get it. I'm part of the problem. I'm that parent to make sure my kids have more than what I had. You don't have to go through what I went through, and I'm willing to stand and take a bullet from.
I'm never scared about my kid getting in front of someone. I was scared that day, but you know what? In 3 lessons, I was proven wrong.
and that's what we have to go through. It's with anything, right? And I feel like I see this with kids today. You aren't going to be great at something right away. It takes what Iverson used to joke about. Practice. It takes that. So you have to get over the hurdle of fear and your own mental restrictions of what you can and can't do to be able to do things, and sometimes even be great. But we don't want that. We want the fast track. You know what? Today's world, that kid should have on like 15 things when you put them in the water, right? So then the next time the kid goes to swim, they got to put 15 things on when all they need to do is just jump in the water. So it's
my kids initially, when they were going to a different instructor, they were programmed. They're like, "Oh, Dad, I gotta have my goggles. I gotta have my this, that." And I'm like, "No, you don't. You're getting in that damn pool and you're jumping in."
But that's what we've done as parents. And again, I'm as guilty as anyone else, because we want to make sure our kids are safe. We want to do all of these things. So we end up burdening them with concepts in their mind of how they have to approach things, as opposed to just get it done. I can just do it. Hey, you know what? It's not going to be great the first time. I am going to have some things that I'm not going to like, but I'll be able to learn from that and develop and be able to overcome. We can't do that anymore because we're too busy coddling our kids, and I'm going to walk across the street with you until you're like 15 years old. As opposed to, let me walk across the street with you a couple of times, understand the concept, I'll explain it to you. If you have any doubts, always err on staying until no cars are available, but you're going to learn how to walk across the street by yourself.
Yep. Riding a bike, doing Legos. I mean, simple shit. But
that's where we are, because we've become so sensitive as parents that we forgot that these are what got us here. How did we become able and capable? Well, some of it was some hardships, and that's how you learned.
And I think that the appreciation for those hardships was lost as communication evolved in the world, internet namely, obviously, because we started sharing more information, and it was a good thing because we improved safety, obviously, to everything you could possibly think of. But have we gone too far in some instances? Absolutely.
And that's the thing. It's what I like to call the 180 rule.
Yeah.
We should avoid doing the exact opposite of anything. There's a progression in how you change. There's a or improve or whatever. It's
Yeah.
not night and day. It doesn't go like that. And I think we have too many times we're doing that in our world, and it's only hurting us. It's not helping us. We're living
Absolutely.
in the fear of things as opposed to being able. That's what life is supposed to be about. Is you go out and experience it. You don't. Let me just put an asterisk in here. If you live in an area where bullets are ringing out all the time, I understand you're not wanting to go out and where the fear comes from. But for everybody else, that fear, you got to live your life. And part of it is stepping in the puddle and tripping on hurting yourself. But then you pick yourself back up and you learn not to step in that puddle or hit the pothole the next time.
You
And
learn from your mistakes always.
Yeah,
And you have to have those. You can't, and this is one thing I shouldn't criticize all parents, but some of these parents that are quote unquote like helicopter parents and stuff like that want to try to avoid every single pitfall for their kid. But I'm sorry, but those kids are the ones that fail. I've seen it firsthand since I was a kid. Those kids that got coddled, those kids that got overprotected, those kids that got bubble sheltered from everything else in the world missed out on making those mistakes and learning for themselves. So even by the time they get older, they can't do basic shit for themselves. I hate to say it. It sounds like I'm on my high horse, but I've seen it way too often for it not to be true.
Me
honestly.
too. Me too. And they end up being the ones who look for somebody else to give them answers because they don't know how to get to the answer themselves. And that's that we are doing them a disservice by being that type of parent. And in the world, and as a world, we're now sort of changing how we do things based on that. You know what? I don't want the parent to be upset. I don't want, so I need to change the world. And we're not helping these young people learn how to deal with controversy and tragedy and obstacles in the right way so they can grow through the heartache and the pain and come out beautiful. That's what we should be doing.
By no means am I a psychologist, but I feel like what you just said is like the perfect indictment of why we have so many people that can't handle emotion and things in their life as well, because they haven't had the chance to experience it in the past. And that's where it ultimately fails them in the future. And they're having to go through, and again, no knock on this, but having to go through therapy, having to go through different things in order to kind of rectify what they missed out on in some instances.
Hey, if you are so much of a germaphobe that your kids don't develop immunities because they haven't encountered anything, they're going to be the ones who suffer the most because they're going to have issues with everything, their whole environment, because they haven't developed the things inside of them to help them fight it. And I feel like that's what we're doing today in a different vein, but it's the same kind of concept. And I hope that we find ways to be able to communicate more effectively and parent more effectively. So I don't want anybody to get hurt. I don't want somebody's kid. I've been hit by a car twice. I remember I ran out from around the car and tried to follow my father, and I got hit by a car. That's not what we want people to go through. But what we do want them to do is experience life. And the more you're afraid to take on the bad parts as well as the good parts, the more likely you're going to miss out. And you're going to.
Well, even better than that, people don't know the good and bad from each other until they've experienced it.
Right.
This goes back to the whole like Plato's allegory thing I think we mentioned a while ago.
Yeah, we did. We talked about that.
You don't know something until you felt it, touched it. It had the five senses. Deal with it. You could see something, hear something. That's only two elements. You've got to experience all five of those senses to really know what the heck it is.
Really understand.
Somebody can tell you something. Somebody can tell you whatever they want, just like people tell other things about political, social, everything else in the world. They can tell you about a sport. They can tell you about anything in the world. Until you've actually experienced it, you don't know, and you can't make your own mind for what it is.
And that's what we should do. So many people, like I remember high school, right? I don't like this girl or I don't like this guy. Okay, then I'm not supposed to like them because I like you. No, maybe that person is cool and you just have a messed up view of things. And I'm with you. And I've always been like that. And I thank my mom for this way of thinking. I had the Encyclopedia Britannica and I used to read about all of this stuff. And I always wanted to touch it and feel it. Because just seeing it in the book wasn't giving me that sensation. It gave me the idea, but then I wanted to go. I still haven't gone to Rome. I want to touch some of these old artifacts, and I want to experience it and breathe the air, because that's how you live it, as opposed to, read it and assume things that maybe is coming through the things you're reading, not through the feeling of
Well,
your.
we've created a world of cop out because now people can experience some of those things through the internet, video, and all these other things we've got. And yeah, it's a different sensory set. Don't get me wrong, but nothing takes away from the human condition of the five senses.
Totally agree.
Nothing can replace it.
And
Touch
how do you interpret
something
things?
you cannot replace. You know?
And how do you interpret things for yourself? Too many people are waiting for you. Hey, you know what? I know Promise, and Promise is going to tell me something, and now that's my rule.
Yeah.
Well, what if it's not the rule for you? We are all different people. So maybe that rule for you could be different if you learn a little bit more about it, experience it, touch it, feel it, taste it, and then you can come out and be able to have a. And I tell my kids this too. Like we don't like how you're trying new food. Oh, that I don't know if I like that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because you haven't tried it. You can tell me that you don't like it after you taste it. My daughter will do this.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Like that ain't tasting it. Here, put it in your mouth. but
think back to when you were a baby. Babies don't have an inherent hate or like or dislike of anything until it actually, they try some food, they touch something, they hear something, they see something. They have to experience it, and you have to almost got to think back as an adult, like, okay, if I come across something new, maybe I should go back to how I thought about it when I was a kid or a baby, and maybe that changes your perspective in a good or a bad way. And that's the whole thing. Like, imagine being someone who's never seen anything in the world, blinders on, just like the whole Plato's allegory thing where he saw shit on a wall, and that's what the interpretation was.
Right.
Imagine if I put a big pile of shit right in front of you, and you never knew what shit was in your life, right? You could think it's completely fine and play with it as Play-Doh until you smelled it, seen it, textured it. Oh my God!
You're like, oh,
you really don't know. It's literally like when you get, like, I think we did this to my son, when you give them their first drop of like a lime, right?
And that sour puss
and that little sour feeling kicks in, and they're like, you see this little puckered face.
Pucker, I love it.
Or you give him his first taste of broccoli or spinach or something that he may not like or whatever. And it's like you see this funny face, and you're like, this is priceless. Like, but that's what we've lost as a society. I think is that ability to appreciate that nuance of not knowing anything about something and then just experiencing it and coming up with their own valid reasons for love, for love or hate, essentially.
I agree with that. And
it's crazy.
When we were growing up, we were outside doing things all the time.
Same.
The world around us. Now it's contained in this thing right here, and people are experiencing the world this way. And I'll say it again. It's just, I love my beautiful kids. I got beautiful kids.
There you go.
But I'll say it again. We're going to end up as a world like the movie Surrogates with Bruce Willis, where everybody's going to be sitting in a chair with some kind of VR thing on, and they're going to be living their lives through something else as opposed to them touching and feeling and living. And that's not the life I want to live. Even if it's shorter, I at least want to be able to experience things for myself so that I can say I liked it or I didn't like it. Not that I'm basing it on someone else's perception of it.
If there's one thing I learned to appreciate during COVID, and having lost members of my family, seeing people get sick, seeing friends get sick, and everything else, life's short. I mean, whether you're living to your 50 or you're living through your 90 or 100 or whatever it is, it doesn't really matter what that number is. Life is short in terms of experience.
Yeah.
You've got to go out and do what you want to do in life, however that is, in the time that you have it. And I understand that obviously, means, money, and all that stuff makes a difference, but you make it happen. If that's your own personal will, you figure out a way.
Make your bucket list up. Make your bucket list up, not when you're not living well. Make your bucket list up young so that you can, throughout your whole life, tick those things off. And then now you're living because those are the things that make you happy or you're curious about, and you're actually going out there and experiencing it.
If there's one thing I talk about with like older folks, both in family, friends, and stuff like that, it's like, okay, they're at retirement age, let's say 65, 90, whatever it is their age is. And they're like, yeah, I didn't get to do this or I didn't get to do that because I wasn't physically able, if their knees gave out, things of their nature, bad health, whatever it is, any number of things. Like, well, if I would have thought about it when I was 20, 30, 40, whatever it is that you're still kind of physically able to do that, then you start planning for it a little bit quicker. So my advice generally to people between, like I said, some of the bad things that happened during COVID to a lot of different people and things like that is start making your list now of things you want to accomplish in your life, family, friends, experiences, whatever it is. Do it now at a younger age, whenever you can, and have that in the back of your mind and be like, hey, this is what I want to shoot for, and try to do that. Try to set goals for every year if you can, of doing something or whatever it is. And that way, by the end of your life, unfortunately or fortunately, you've done what you wanted to do. And that's the whole word behind legacy, right? Not just for other people, but for yourself.
Well, no, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. Like, my running thought is like, I want to be able to leave the world happy in some way, knowing that I did what I did. And that's my last thought. That's my last thought, at least.
And that's what I think we all should be looking at. Like, and I totally agree and said the same thing. I do think you should make those lists early, and then you can say you've accomplished some things in life. Maybe not everything.
Not everything. Yeah.
Accomplished some things in life, and you can really reflect on those and say, I'm glad that I lived and I experienced those things, good and bad.
There's a movie that helps me self-reflect. It's literally a movie Bucket List with Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson.
Yep.
I thought it was a great movie. I mean,
I haven't seen it in a while, but it was good. I liked what they were showing. Like, these guys were trying to live their bucket list, and they're a bunch of old men going through this process.
Yep. And that's the whole premise behind it. Like that was the thing. Like, and I'm thinking to myself, these guys were doing it at an older age, health conditions, the whole 9 yards, sad ending, and all that stuff. Reverse that like 30 years if you can.
And then it's real. And I can tell you from my own personal experience, I'm still going through it, and I feel very, very old. And I'm right now, besides the fact that my back and my leg are hurting and I need to lay back down, I'm afraid that all of the things I thought that I'd be, because I never thought I'd be where I am at this age, I won't be able to do. Right. I'm not even sure I'll ever be able to run, like literally run again.
Yeah.
That's scary to think that. And I'm not that old. So
exactly it.
If what you said is 100% correct, and if we can, have you guys leave this with a thought, or hopefully many thoughts about the things that we talked about. But if there's one thought that we want to leave you with, is understand that life is short, and you can't assume that tomorrow is going to be given to you. So make sure that you're living your life. Being alive is not living. Being alive is just existing.
Exactly.
Live your life and plan for the things. Look to be able to enjoy your life when you're 20, 30, 40. Don't try to wait until you're 50 or 60 and think that you're going to still be able to do the things you can when you're 30 and 40. Just remember that.
It's like I say, the message for the quote unquote Instagram generation is, you could either look at those things that your friends or whoever else is doing in all those pictures, or you could experience them. Take your pick.
Be a participant, and I say that, and I feel like that right now, after all of my surgeries and things, I feel like I'm a spectator in life and not a participant.
Sure.
That's the difference of living or just being alive. You have to participate in life. If you want to you can be a spectator.
Spectator. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's your choosing, that's your choosing.
It's up to you. But you could be the person sitting on your couch watching TV and watching other people do great things, or you could be out there trying to do great things yourself.
Exactly. Yep. It's all we can. It's all we can hope for as humans, and hopefully within your own family or friend construct, you're doing what you want to do at the end of the day.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
I think this is a good place to cut off. What you thinking?
No, I think so too. I think we've had a really good conversation here, and taken it full circle between politics and Olympics and everything else in between. It's been crazy this week, to say the least. I'm sure next week's been crazier.
It has been. And know that, like you said, it could be even crazier next week. But that's also part of the joy of life, right?
It is. We don't know what tomorrow holds.
And that's right. And you don't want it to be mundane and repetitive. You don't want Groundhog Day every day. You want something to excite you, to whatever. I can't remember the exact speech that Jim Valvano said, but you should laugh and cry and feel. And if you're doing those things every day, you're living.
Still one of the greatest speeches in history. It will live down forever. Absolutely.
Forever.
Yes.
Forever. And he was so right about the emotions. That's what you're alive when you feel emotions about the things around you, because you care enough about it, and it's doing something to you to make you care.
Yep. Absolutely agree.
Don't be a spectator, people. Participate in your life.
Yep. Wholeheartedly.
P squared, what if so we can, circle back and get our next podcast going. And then I know we had some good ideas that we're going to share.
Yeah, let's create a checklist before we get on, and then kind of go from there.
Yep. And we're going to continue to bring the best product that we can to you. And we want to make you think. We want to make you laugh. We want to make you feel. And maybe through those feelings, you'll be able to interact with the world that you live in a little bit more effectively.
Absolutely. Nothing but the best, to say the least. Yep.
Always see you, bro.
Peace
Respect
out.
you.
Brown and
Peace
Brown
out,
signing
brother.
off. Good luck to everybody.
You got it. Enjoy the day.
Yep.
Hey, wait, Promit.
Yep.
I wanted to find out. You can turn the recording off.